Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief. We welcome you, whoever you are, whomever and however you love, and whatever you may or may not believe. My name is Cynthia Rosengard, and I will be your worship associate today. We want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are joining us remotely from wherever you may be. This morning, we're so pleased to have Jen Shattuck, who is a writer and Unitarian Universalist religious educator specializing in early childhood. She has 25 years of experience working with young children and is passionate about crafting innovative resources that help UU communities joyfully welcome their very youngest congregants. We also extend our thanks to Brian Bartling, who will be providing our music this morning. Thank you. So let us all center our hearts and minds as we begin our worship together. Now is our time of greeting, where we stand up and we talk to our pew neighbors and we go around the church to say hello and make sure that everyone has been greeted. So take your time. Yes, for those of you already turning around to wave to our folks at home, that would be a great way to greet them as well. Thank you. Please join me in our chalice lighting. The words are printed in your order of service. This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights the way towards harmony, justice, and hope for all. All right, we are moving right along to sharing our covenant. Please feel free to say the words of the covenant, even if you are here visiting us for the very first time. We, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Providence, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the light we know by many names, and with gratitude for our deep connection to each other and to the larger web of existence, covenant to walk together in our search for truth, seeking the paths of wisdom, compassion, and justice.
Our reading this morning is by Sarah Moores Campbell. Give us the spirit of the child. Give us the child who lives within, the child who trusts, the child who imagines, the child who sings, the child who receives without reservation, the child who gives without judgment. Give us a child's eyes that we may receive the beauty and freshness of this day like a sunrise. Give us a child's heart that we may be filled with wonder and delight. Give us a child's faith that we may be cured of our cynicism. Give us the spirit of the child who is not afraid to need, who is not afraid to love.
We now hear the joys and sorrows of the people in our congregation as written in the book at the back of the meeting house. Our partner church in Transylvania carved the beautiful candlestick pedestal for the large candle from which we light all our individual candles of joy and sorrow. A candle of healing to my parents who had COVID and had to miss our family holiday celebration. Good news is that they are on the mend. And a candle of gratitude to this lovely church community. Here's to a great 2025 for all of us, by Lisa M. Remembering John Hunt Doak, who died last month. He was kind, generous, and loving. His life was a blessing. And one additional candle of community love for Reverend Liz, who lost her father on Christmas Day. Friends, let us rest in the gladness that we have each other to share in our joys and sorrows. It makes all the difference. And now let's center our heart as we move into our prayer and meditation. Our prayer and meditation today comes from Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, ancestor of the stars and the sun, you who embrace the vastness of space and us along with it, be with us today. Hold us in our worry, our exhaustion, our grief. Keep us close as we sit with our truth, whatever that may be. Lead us to rest in the quiet, to find solace and renewal in this time of shifting light and dark. You whose arms open with the spinning galaxies, help us to make room as you do for all that is. Open our hearts to our loved ones, our neighbors, the beings with whom we share this planet. Lead us to reach out to others in compassion. Turn us toward one another in mercy, right relationship, and reconciliation. You who have seen the rising and setting of suns, of seasons, of civilizations, remind us of all that we have learned from the history of the world and from our own histories. Give us the courage to face our mistakes and to repair them whenever possible. Help us understand our interdependence, our gravitational relatedness with all the other spinning lives around us, and lead us to treat those relationships with care. In this space, filled with the people among us who shine like stars, this space filled with the sparkle of love and care, we give thanks for this moment to be together. May our senses be open to the beauty of this day, this season, this world. We continue our contemplation in silence.
I came to church for the first time when I was 4 years old. I don't remember much of that introductory service, just a few words spoken from the pulpit by a man that I would later come to know as the Reverend Robbie Walsh. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. The next week, when my family came back to church and I heard those words again, whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here, I gasped out loud. He said those words last week, I stage whispered to my mother, who promptly shushed me. I knew I'd spoken out of turn, but in my defense, I was in awe. Before that moment, I hadn't known that there were other people like me, people who knew the joy of repetition, of rolling around in one's mouth again and again, the delicious rhythms of a particular set of words until they became part of you. For years, this is what church was for me, a place where I could feel in community what had previously only been a private satisfaction. The fact that I didn't understand much of the actual content of services did not bother me at all. All I cared about was that certain key elements recurred week after week after week. By the time I was 8 and beginning to understand a little about why my parents had come to Unitarian Universalism in the first place, I was deep in a personal project, trying to understand why preschool me had loved the repeated elements of church so much. My baby sister had been born that year, and to prepare to help care for her, I had been dipping into my mother's large collection of child development books. Through the work of Frances Ilg and Louise Bates Ames, T. Barry Brazelton, and Benjamin Spock, I learned a lot about what young children need from their caregivers. I also found information that taught me about my younger self, a person whose experiences I remembered clearly, but whose motivations didn't make sense to me. Eventually, I discovered that part of the reason I loved the repeated elements of church so much is that sameness helps many preschoolers feel safe and loved. I like to say that my career in early childhood began right then, the moment I both understood myself and realized that I could provide for others the same things that I had once so deeply needed. Before I was even in my teens, I took this knowledge to babysitting. In my 20s, I employed it as a full-time childcare provider and nanny. In my 30s and 40s, I would bring it back to church, specializing in early childhood religious education and creating resources designed to support caregivers and introduce the very young to spiritual practice. As I worked on the resources I created, I realized repeatedly that the needs I was writing about are not unique to preschoolers at all, but common to all human beings of all ages. The need to feel secure, the need to feel affirmed, the need to feel understood and empowered by our communities. We bring these needs with us out of childhood and into the spaces we frequent. As a religious educator, much of my time is spent thinking about and designing spaces that are able to meet the needs we bring. I spend many hours a week wondering how I can tangibly and authentically help people know that they are worthy and that we, their spiritual community, are prepared to be with them exactly as they are. I keep a quotation from Madeleine L'Engle on my office wall to help me remember what it means to do this. You might know her as the author of such classics as A Wrinkle in Time. She wrote, "I am still every age that I have ever been. Because I was once a child, I'm always a child. Because I was once a searching adolescent, giving to moods and ecstasies, these are still part of me and always will be. Because I was once a rebellious student, there is and always will be in me a rebellious student crying out for reform." L'Engle reminds me that part of what it means to help build truly welcoming congregational spaces as a religious educator is to access in myself the understanding that I was a child once too, and that I bring this child self with me when I serve. When I say this, I don't mean the inner child that our culture talks about in a sentimental way, but the self that continually grappled, as all people do, with what it means to be human in all the joy and grief that that entails. I left something out before from that story of my first day at church, which is that I'm a person with cerebral palsy. When I came to church at age 4, I came wearing the heavy leg casts that were meant to ease some of the effects of that condition. For many reasons, I believe that these casts marked me as broken and unlovable. By the time I was 6, the casts were no longer needed, but I moved through the world as though I still had them on, feeling that everyone could see how odd and unworthy I was, carrying the weight of that belief. When I say I bring my child self to church, I mean I bring to church with me both the belief that I am broken and the unquenchable hope that I will be understood as whole. The repeated element of the service, the one that I had loved so much, was proof to me that I belonged. The fact that it was repeated every week reassured me that the Reverend Robbie Walsh really meant it, that I personally was welcome on my journey, whatever that meant. When I help create spaces of belonging in the churches I serve, it is that child who is most present to the work. The 4-year-old who came heavy and lonely and left every week feeling a little lighter, a little more connected. In my book, The Tending Years, I write that the years between ages 2 and 5 are a period of challenge for young children and their caregivers as kiddos grow their grown-ups into the teachers and leaders they need them to be. If you've ever spent more than 5 minutes with a preschooler, you know what this can look like. Negotiation upon negotiation, lots of love, but also lots of conflict and repair. Even if you haven't spent time with preschoolers, this will probably sound familiar, and that's because it's a description of what it means to be human and to be in relationship. Preschoolers are not the only ones who grow others into the people they need them to be. Whenever we come into community, we are growing each other into folks who can meet each other's needs and who can grow together to create spaces of great love. We do this when we're honest with each other, when we are vulnerable with each other, even when we disagree and have conflict with one another. Nobody comes to church perfect, and this is by design. What we bring with us, all our needs, all our questions, all our flaws and insecurities from every age, is the stuff that communities are made of. Like preschoolers, we are pushing and pulling each other into growth. We know how hard this can be, and yet we keep coming back together, slowly and surely stretching each other and tending each other into the selves that we know we can be. A couple of summers ago, I had the chance to read Mia Birdsong's wonderful book, How We Show Up. In her book, Birdsong writes about the ways in which many of our current political, cultural, and economic systems are not built to meet people's needs, which she lists as a series of longings and which coincidentally echo the ones that I have found in my own work. She says it this way, as a list. 1, we long to be known. 2, we long to give and receive support. 3, we long for freedom and accountability. Birdsong explains that the word free is derived from a root that means beloved. To be beloved to each other, she says, is to make sure that together we have all the things we need. This requires that we show up collectively again and again and again, willing to show care and concern for each other, willing to push back against the systems that wish to drive us apart. We exist, she says, not as wholly singular, autonomous beings, nor completely merged, but in a fluctuating space in between. This idea was expressed beautifully in Desmond Tutu's explanation of the South African concept of Ubuntu. He said, "It is to say, my humanity is caught up, is inextricably bound up in yours. We belong in a bundle of life. It is not, I think, therefore I am. It says rather, I am human because I belong, I participate, and I share." To be in community, to belong, to participate, to share, both here in this space and out in the world, is to bring our full selves into that community, our child self and our adult one, our grieving self and our healing self, our curious self, our compassionate self, the self that is willing to stretch and be stretched. This may feel like a big ask, but the truth is that we're already doing it all the time. All ourselves are here already, ready to do the work of being beloved to each other, of creating a spiritual home for one another. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, may you go into the world knowing that all yourselves are whole and worthy and deeply, deeply loved. I invite us to be in silence together for a moment now, holding together all the precious, messy, beautifully authentic selves from all the ages we have ever been who have come together in this room, in this home. Let us breathe for a moment in the knowledge that no matter how we arrive today and no matter what we brought with us, we are held in the collective spirit of love, liberation, and ongoing growth that we create here together. I'd love to close our time together with a reading adapted from the late John O'Donohue, one of my favorites and maybe a favorite of some of you here in this room. I invite you to imagine that I'm reading it to the part of you that is most in need of these words. May this place shelter your life. When you come home here, may the weight of the world fall from your shoulders. May your heart be tranquil here, blessed by a peace the world cannot give. May this be a lucky place where the graces your life desires always find a way to this door. May nothing destructive ever cross this threshold. May this be a safe place full of understanding and acceptance, where you can be as you are without any need of mask or pretense or image. May this be a place of discovery where the possibilities that sleep in the clay of your soul can emerge to deepen and refine your vision for all that is yet to come to birth. May it be a place of courage where healing and growth are loved, where dignity and forgiveness prevail, a home where patience of spirit is prized and the sight of the destination is never lost, though the journey be difficult and slow. May it be a house of welcome for the broken and diminished. May you have the eyes to see that no visitor arrives without a gift and no guest leaves without a blessing. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit for our next hymn, Lo, How a Rose E'er Blooming, which is in an insert in your order of service.
As a self-supporting congregation and a beloved, aspiring community, we rely on generosity and commitment to keep us vital and relevant. Our weekly offering is a manifestation of our faith and an opportunity to practice generosity and dedication in a small way that adds up to an important part of our capacity here at First U. We invite you to join in the spirit of love and open-handedness as the offering for the mission and vision of this church is now gratefully received. As always, thank you for all that you give, all that you do, and all that you are. Our services next Sunday will be led by Reverend Erica Barron, who will be speaking on the topic of grace for a new year. We look forward to seeing you then. Please be sure to check the First U Times, our weekly newsletter that is the single source for news, events, and everything that's happening at First Unitarian. The First U Times is sent by email to all members, friends, and others who sign up to receive it. You can access it and sign up through the church website or fill out a guest registry form at the welcome table in the meeting house in the back.
Our closing words this morning are from the Reverend Don Shea Cooley. Here may you know that you are lovable and that indeed you are loved. May you carry that love out into the world as a blessing. May it be so.
Please join me in the chalice extinguishing words that are printed in your order of service. Carry the flame of peace and love